we will gather up some props today. And if you already have some things by you, great. If you need to collect some things, what I would like you to have is a blanket or a bath towel of some sort, a pillow or a bolster. Those of you that have yoga blocks or books or something like that, you can have those things. I do want us to have either a yoga strap, a long scarf, or you can take those bath towels, have them folded lengthwise and just tightly roll them up. And that'll give us a version of a yoga strap that we'll use later on. And anything else you might want to have for your practice. I forgot, I'm going to mute us all. Getting a little behind the game here. So I'm going to hit mute for everybody, but anytime during class, you're always welcome to unmute yourself, ask questions, or use the chat box at the bottom, because I watch the screen and see you guys and try to keep my eye on you the best I can. All right, good. So my morning classes, I like to start with a little bit more fluidity just to kind of limber up our joints. Some of you might have already been moving around this morning. Some of us might have just rolled out of bed, like myself. So it's always good to just do some of this movement. But we will start in a supported pose. So if you have your towel or blanket and your pillow, we'll want those things. If you do not have those props, don't stress about it. You can still get the benefits of the pose. So we've been doing this Supta Baddha Konasana or supported bound angle pose as an option. We'll continue with that, but I'm going to give us a different variation today that's going to be an even more stretch for the chest and the shoulders. So more of a heart opener here. For some of us, it might be a little too intense, so you'll have to make your adjustments. If you're using a towel, it'll be a little less intense because you'll be lower to the ground. If you have a bigger blanket, it's going to lift you up a little higher, okay? So one, we'll take our pillows to the front of our mat, and that's where our legs will eventually end up. And either taking your towel, again, in this long rectangular fold, and you can fold it up one more time if you want a little bit more lift. It does have to be long enough to go across the upper back here. So we'll take that and just roll it on up so that we have a roll, like so. I'm going to try to use my blanket, so I'll have a little bit more. Same thing, I have my long rectangular fold that I'm going to take in half one more time, and then I'm going to roll it up. Now this is going to be pretty big, so we'll see. Now the roll is going to go perpendicular to your mat, and you want to have enough space on the other side of your mat for the shoulders and the head. So this roll will hit us just at the tips of the shoulder blades, maybe just slightly below the shoulder blades. It's not down in our lumbar spine. It's not across the shoulders, because we're actually going to want our shoulders and the head to come all the way back down to the ground over the roll. And we'll take our cactus arms there too, so it's going to be this really nice lift for the chest, almost like Matsyasana or fish pose. And if it doesn't feel good, we don't do it, no problem. You can take other variations. So when we come down, we'll bring our legs over those pillows. We do want that low back to be lengthening out into the ground, and just ease the body down. And you'll feel that roll, and I'm just going to kind of scooch around so I can feel the lift through the back of my heart. And I'm going to allow the shoulders and the upper arm bones to come back over the top of the roll. And then try to bend at the elbows so the backs of the hands are flopping to the ground. My head is comfortably on the ground, and the neck should be still in its natural curve up from the floor. And like I said, if that's a little much, just go a little smaller or take it out. Now, as far as the legs go, our options, again, I'll go over those. Bent knees and knees together with the support of the pillow behind the crease of the knees. Nice way to just let the low back ease to the floor. The Baddha Konasana, soles of the feet come together. And we allow those knees to open, and the pillow supports the weight of the legs here. Or, as always, just simply straighten and stretch the legs out They could be nice and wide and allowing the feet to flap open. So I'll give us all a moment to kind of wiggle around, loosen things up. Remember, if you have ponytails, you need to move them out of the way so that we can find the very back center of our skull. And this should feel quite nice. This is a really nice counter to our rounding, the flexion, and forward folding that we tend to do mostly throughout our day. So this can set our intention for the rest of our day to allow our hearts to be open and to allow the front of our chest to get a nice stretch. Once we're comfortable, let's close those eyes and press the pause button and try to cultivate as much stillness in our physical body as we can. So just let the whole body begin to relax, relaxing all the muscles of the body. Soften the little muscles around the face, poof the cheeks, release the mouth, tongue, and jaw. Continue to let the weight of the arms sink into the ground. If the backs of those hands don't touch now, after several nice deep breaths and moments here, as gravity tractions us out, they might eventually. Let that low back sink into the ground and relax all the way down the legs into those feet and toes. And as we're scanning our body and letting go of any tension or tightness, if we come across areas that maybe feel a little tender this morning, a little stiff, maybe we're taking care of some areas, let's honor and recognize all of those areas. Send a nice healing breath into them. And on the exhale, those areas get to relax as well. Remembering that we each have permission to modify and adjust. And we bring in that quality of santosha or contentment into our practice. So being content wherever we are this morning on our mat. Continue to let the whole body relax. Now let's start to feel and notice the natural rhythm of our breath. So if we're on the support, our breath might feel quite different here as we're opening up the rib cage, stretching those intercostal muscles. So on our inhale, we might feel a little bit more expansion around the chest. On the exhale, let that breath flow all the way back out. Do try to let the abdominal muscles work in unison with the breath. We might not be able to feel that big belly breath as much with our heart elevated, but as we breathe in, we can still relax the belly and let it rise up as much as possible. And on those exhales, we can feel that contraction, allow the belly to sink back into the body. Now we are trying to breathe as smoothly and evenly as possible in and out through the nose. And to help create that evenness, sometimes mentally counting our breath can really create what's called samavriti pranayama, or even equal breath. So on our next inhale, just mentally counting the breath that we're taking to fill ourselves up this morning with fresh air, prana, and energy. And when we get to our exhale, exhaling the same number back out. Whatever the number is, it doesn't matter. And let's all follow a couple more rounds at our own rhythm and pace. And maybe these last 2 rounds, we try to lengthen and stretch a little bit longer by adding 1 to 2 counts on both the inhale and the exhale. And then let's all take one more nice big breath. Let's try to make this breath our biggest breath of our morning yet. So whenever we get to that next inhalation, just let that breath roll into the body, filling the whole body up from the bottom all the way to the top and the brim of the throat. And next exhale will be our biggest exhale of our morning yet, and taking the time to empty, empty, empty every last drop, clean everything out. And we can continue with this deeper breath or simply let the breath wander away for a moment, letting go of trying to control and follow the breath for a moment. Let's come back to the physical body. And we'll gently start to wake the body back up. So we'll give those toes a wiggle, the fingertips, a rock of the head side to side if that's okay for our neck this morning. Those of us that have our knees open in Baddha Konasana, let's float the knees up to the ceiling. And we'll all try to straighten and stretch both legs out down the center of our mat. And now we are up on a lift, so just be mindful. We'll try to slide our arms overhead so that we are stretching the whole body out in our long body stretch for a moment. And this will even intensify that stretch even more through the torso and the side bodies. Stretching the right side a little bit more. Give the left side a little bit more. And then point and flex the feet a couple times. If our legs are over a pillow, those feet will float up in the air. And then an inhale, let's flex those feet, spread the toes, spread the fingers of the hands, and just create as much length and space in the body as possible. Now on our exhale, we'll just slide those arms back out into our cactus arms. Step your feet in. We might not be able to draw the knees in towards the body because we are in this back bend, but we can float the feet maybe a couple inches up from the floor. And that will allow us to roll over to one side carefully. Rest the head on the arm for a moment. And then press into the ground and come up just enough to slide our props out. So we will come back down onto our back this morning to start with some of those fluid movements I was talking about so we can get our joints to wake up and loosen up. So we'll clear our space, we'll come right back down onto the ground, make the adjustments here. And then we want to bring our body right down the middle of our yoga mat. So bring the legs and the insides of the feet to touch. Arms come right down beside the body. Draw those shoulder blades under. So we should feel like we're in a nice straight line from the top of our head all the way to the insides of those feet. Following the breath, on the inhale, re-extend the arms up to the ceiling, all the way back overhead. Simultaneously flex those feet, toes to shin bone. Exhale, point the toes to the front of the mat and pump those arms all the way back down beside the body. And use some strength here. Start squeezing those muscles. Inhale, flexes the feet, toes to shins, arms up and all the way overhead. We'll feel that gentle back bend. Exhale, point the toes and push those arms back down. Feel some power. Draw the belly in. Keep going. Water pump pose. Getting our coordination woken up. If we want a little bit more, when we point the toes and pump those arms, float the head up and look to the toes. So a subtle abdominal crunch and a stretch for the root of the neck. And then on the inhale, when we go back to extension, we relax the head back down. Let's all do 2 more. Let your breath guide you. The exhale, a little bit more power and strengthening and squeezing of the muscles. Inhale is that lengthening and extension. Now we'll meet on the inhale. So next time those arms are overhead, we'll go right into flowing Pavana Muktasana, wind relieving. A little bit more work for the core, a little bit more warming of the hips. So on this exhale, draw the belly in, pump those arms, pull the right knee in, head may continue to lift. The feet may be actively flexed or pointed. Inhale with control, re-extend the body back up. Exhale, use the core to pull the left knee up, so we'll alternate side to side. If you're floating the head up, really draw that belly in, and the inhale lengthens. And we'll take that one more time to each side. Exhale, nice squeeze. We're also massaging our digestive system and purposely trying to compress the abdominal wall right to left. After that last time on your left side, we'll meet on the inhale again, stretch everything out. Exhale, both arms will float back down beside the body. Walk those feet in, heels towards the sit bones. Draw those shoulder blades under. Now we have a few inches between our feet and our knees. Those of you that have yoga blocks, feel free to take your yoga block on its low setting, placing it right between those inner thighs. If we do not have a yoga block, pretend you do. So avoid the knees flapping open and keep your knees in line with your toes. Flowing bridge pose with our breath. Tighten up the backside, so squeeze your glutes and your hamstrings. And on the inhale, press through the upper arm bones and the feet to lift those hips up, squeezing the block if we have it. Exhale, equal amount of time to lower back down. And then we'll keep moving with our breath. So we're strengthening the back and getting a little stretch or a big stretch here for the quads, the hip flexors. As the body starts to warm up to this pose, you might be going a little further up, and that'll take us into a gentle inversion as the heart goes a little higher than the head. Make sure that weight is moving into the shoulders and not the neck. And if we want to add that extra massage for the upper back and loosening for the shoulders, next inhale when the hips lift, the arms lift back up and all the way overhead. And the exhale, the arms float back down as the hips lower down. 2 more rounds, Setu Bandhasan, whatever variation you're choosing this morning. Just try to move with some fluidity here, getting rid of stiffness and tightness this morning. The next exhale is where we'll meet. So next time you lower back down, take that block out, rock the knees side to side. Draw that low belly in, and we'll hug our knees in here, and we'll pause here for a moment. So just rock it out across that low back. Now bring the knees to neutral. We'll do one more roly-poly movement here for our hips, and then we'll transition. So our knees are neutral, bringing the fingertips to our knees. Try to keep the big toes touching. On the inhale, open the knees nice and wide. Let the knees fall away from you. The arms will straighten. Squeeze the knees back together and pull them in. So we're making 2 circles. We're trying to keep the big toes touching the whole time. This is like a rolling bound angle pose. And we want to feel those thigh bones moving around in those hip sockets. The inhale opens the knees wide, they fall away. Exhale, squeeze them together and in. One more time this direction. Next time those knees are together and pulled in towards the chest, we'll reverse the circling. So the knees are together and pulled in. Let the knees fall together away from the body, open them up, and now draw them wide towards the shoulders and back in. So just going opposite direction, rolling around on those hips. The whole time, try to keep those big toes touching. That's sometimes the hardest part. Got to use a little bit of awareness there, coordination. And one more time this direction. Now the next time our knees are wide and drawn out towards our shoulders, pause there. Bring the hands to the insides. Try to bring the insides of the feet or soles of the feet to touch, and we'll pause for a moment in Baddha Konasana here. So the elbows might gently encourage the thigh bones out. Continue to let that low back sink to the ground, and we're drawing the heels towards the pubic bone, bound angle pose. And then take a hold of those feet or toes and open the soles of the feet to the ceiling. Let the thigh bones open wide into happy baby pose. Give yourself a little rock here. And then one more time, we'll squeeze those knees together. Let's straighten both legs up to the ceiling just for a moment to get the backs of the legs a nice stretch. Waterfall pose. Massage those hamstrings, point, flex the feet. And then we'll bend the knees, bring the right arm beside the head. Let's roll back over onto our side. And we'll want to pause for a moment because we have been on our back and doing some gentle inversions. And then we can look to the ground, press into the ground, and bring the body up. All right, so loosen some things up. Let's come into, or try to come into Baddha Konasana right now. Do sitting up on some type of rock. So that might be your folded towel or blanket. If you are up on something higher, you might need additional support for the knees. And if Baddha Konasana throws us way out of alignment and we end up rounding our back and the knees are up in our shoulders, let it go. And you can come into our easy cross or Sukhasana, no problem, okay? If we are trying to do our bound ankle pose, we'll draw the feet together, move any flesh out of the way so that we're propped up on our sit bones. And this does take some effort to sit up tall and keep the spine in neutral. From here, flare the toes away from each other. Continue to try to press into the mound of the big toe, mound of pinky toe, and that inner heel. See if you can get those heels to connect. Feel like you're trying to draw those thigh bones in. Do pull up through those lower locks or bandhas so the pelvic floor can be squeezing and lifting and just below the navel center. And then we'll extend our fingertips out from the shoulders and the head is just floating on top of those shoulders. Turning the palms up to the ceiling, let's take a nice deep breath in and just float the arms straight up to the ceiling. Turn the palms out, exhale, bring the fingertips down. Flowing seated triangle, right arm only. Inhale that right arm up. Keep that right sit bone glued to your prop. Lean over to the left, lateral extension. The inhale will pull us back up. We'll switch arms. Keep the sit bones rooted, low belly in to protect the back. Lean it over to the right. Let's do that one more time. Upavishta Trikonasana, lateral extension. We're sliding along invisible walls, stretching out the waist, the rib cage and shoulder. One more time to our right. Our next inhale will float us straight up towards the ceiling. Both arms come up. Bring the palms to touch. Exhale to our center. So we'll continue to hold Baddha Konasana. If you took easy cross instead, at this time, switch the cross of your legs, placing the opposite foot in front. We'll bring our hands to those feet or ankles, and we'll try to just enjoy this hip opener a little bit more. So if we are taking it into a hinge, the front of the spine stays as long as the back of the spine. So avoid tucking, diving, and rounding into the pose. Instead, that heart opener should still be expressed here. So if you are hinging, you're leading with the heart. Elbows can draw back towards the hips. Some of you might even be able to walk your fingertips forward, bringing the body closer to the ground. And if you're in that group, you can also slide a prop to support the head. Others of us will be sitting perfectly straight up or just a little hinge. Just be very mindful how that feels for our low backs. One more breath. And then on our inhale, we'll float that head back up if we've moved forward. Take a hold of those knees, step your feet wider than the hips. We'll take our weight into our hands and just gently rock those knees up, little windshield wipers. And then this make our big transition to tabletop. So we'll all have to rearrange ourselves on our mat, walking the feet around, hands around, clearing our space, adding to our space, whatever we need. Fingers are spread nice and wide, stack those joints. The hand should be as broad as the shoulders. You can always take your hands a little wider than the shoulders, especially if you have tension there. We don't want to be collapsing the chest. We want to be able to move freely from the front to back of our heart. The knees and feet are hips width apart. We'll keep our drishti or our focal point slightly in front of the fingertips so the neck stays long. Let's come right into some cat-cows here. So on the inhale, relax the belly, lift the tailbone, and stretch the spine nice and long up through the crown of the head. Exhale, draw the belly in, tuck that tail under, chin to chest, look to the belly button and round the back. Pair your movement with your breath. Let your breath guide you in and out of this pose. So those of us that have a lot of muscular tension in our back, especially that low back, our cat stretch can help stretch up those muscles. If we have issues with bulging discs, then the gentle back bend can help decompress the spine. So we get a benefit in both. But if one feels really nice for the back today, pause and hold on to it for a little bit longer. Maybe add some lateral movements. And we'll balance ourselves out and we'll all meet back in neutral position. So nice strong arms here. Do draw that low belly in to keep the spine in neutral. Let's stretch our right foot straight back from our hip. foot to the floor. We'll press that heel towards the ground to intensify the stretch for the back of the leg. Those of you that want to add a strengthening element this morning, you'll press into the ground through your hands. Try to keep your hips low, but cool the left knee and foot from the floor in our runner's plank. So we're still stretching out the right side, strengthening the upper body and core. Wherever we are, big breath in. Exhale, tabletop. There should not be a big shift in those hips when you come down. If there is, you need to tighten up through the lower abdominals more. Stretch that left foot back, straight from the hip. We're balancing a tray of wine glasses on our back and low back. We don't want them to tip or spill. And then we'll press that heel back to intensify the stretch. Root into the first knuckles of the fingers so the wrists aren't taking all of the pressure. And if you want to try a little strengthening, keep the body low in plank, but pull the right knee and foot from the floor. Wherever we are, one more inhale. Our exhale brings us back to tabletop. One more time, take it into your cat, always rising up on fingertips or fists for wrists if needed. And one more in your cat and cow, just to give the back another little stretch. And then we're gonna stretch it even more in our first child's pose. So touch the big toes together, open the knees wider than the hips, and draw those hips back and down to the heels. Those of us that want to continue with this hard opening shoulder stretching, open the hands wider than the shoulders now. So maybe even more to the edges of the yoga mat as you allow the heart and head to melt to the ground. And I give these modifications every class, but they're important reminders. So if the head isn't easily touching the ground, use your arms or stack your fists under the forehead or a yoga prop. If it's a little bit much on our knees to sit back, use the pillow or blanket to sit on, or simply keep your hips higher in the air. Balasana, child's pose, allowing the weight of the body to come back to the ground. Nice stretch across that lumbar spine and hips. Let's all take one more nice deep cycle of breathing in the pose. And then the next inhale, we'll float the head up and the body up. We just gave our wrists a quick break. We are going to do a little bit of our low flow this morning. Again, thinking about this fluidity in our practice to loosen things up. So at this point, we might want to walk a little bit more towards the back of our yoga mat so we have space in front of us because we will end up on our bellies here. Tuck those toes under. Your knees should be back, hips width. Walk those hands at least one hand's distance forward so the arms are at an angle. Draw the lower abdominals in, and on our inhale, we're going to slide forward into kneeling plank. So I really want you to feel the action of the scooping of the tailbone under. Keep the head in line with the spine. Now on the exhale, we'll take a baby chaturanga. So you'll bend your elbows in towards the rib cage. The spine should stay in neutral. Inhale, straighten the arms. We'll give our wrists a break. So on this next exhale, bow back. Hips towards the heels, they won't touch. Pop the palms off the ground. So you're taking Hasta Bandha, you're rounding through the knuckles. That will stretch out the wrists. The head doesn't need to touch. You're just bowing it towards the center of the mat. So let's start to move with the breath. Inhaling, kneeling plank. Exhale, a little half chaturanga here, or a tricep push-up. Inhale, straighten the arms. Exhale, pull the hips back. Pop the palms up to stretch out your wrists, bow the head. Let's do that one more time. Inhale, kneeling plank. Exhale, half chaturanga. Your elbows should squeeze the rib cage. We're strengthening that upper body. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, take a bow. Now next time we inhale forward, this time we're going to try to do a fuller version of chaturanga. Anybody that wants to lift their knees up and try it, you may. And this is actually a pose. We often just collapse and drop to the ground, I know. But we can try to slowly lower, and eventually you're hovering parallel to the floor. Oh, and then gravity says, hello. And we relax down. So come all the way down. Relax those feet down. Let's just pause for a moment and Makarasana. So stack the hands, one hand on top of the other. Either resting the forehead on the hands or turn the head to one side if it's more comfortable. Try to let the heels flop open here. Give your hips a little wiggle and relax the muscles of the back. So we will do our Bhujangasana, Shalabhasana, our Cobras, Locust to help strengthen those muscles along the back line. Don't overdo it. Take your breaks as needed. One more breath here, just relaxing. And then let's slide the hands under the shoulders. Chin comes forward. Squeeze those elbows in and pull your shoulder blades down your back. Now we need to activate the feet and the legs. We'll open the feet wider than the hips if we take care of our low back. If we want a little bit more, you zip the feet and legs up like the tail of a snake. On our inhale, we're gonna lift the chest up by squeezing the back muscles. So pull those shoulder blades down and together, squeeze the low back. Our glutes are supporting characters in this pose, so we wanna consciously tighten them. Press into the ground all the way through the feet. Now keep the back of the neck long so we're not jamming the back of the neck. Our gaze might move slightly forward. And we're still breathing, so don't forget to breathe. A little bit more, try to float the hands up from the ground and breathe. So we're holding, squeezing, strengthening. A little bit more, locust those arms. So stretch the arms back beside the torso, palms down, reaching to those heels. Even more, Ardha Shalabhasana, half locust. On our next in-breath, keep the right leg straight. Squeeze the right buttock even more and lift the right leg up. Exhale it down. Inhale, breathing, left leg lifts up. Exhale. Repeat one more single leg, or those of us that want Purna Shalabhasana. Inhale, breathing. Everything lifts. The whole back is super strong. We're flying off of our mat here. Take one more big breath in. And then exhale, flop to the ground. Head may turn to one side. Arms can flop beside the body, palms up. Let the heels flop open and just relax. If it's better for the head and neck, slide your hands back underneath the head. Heart racing, things are waking up. So our back bends, they compress our adrenal glands, so they're really great for adrenal fatigue. They improve our metabolism, and it's good for our heart. But come back to the breath, even and steady it out. Those of us that have the head turned, take a counter twist, turn the head the other way for one more breath. And then the chin will come forward, hands under the shoulders, squeeze the elbows in, tuck the toes under. Scoop that tailbone under, pull that low belly away, pretend there's hot coals under the belly, and then press into the ground. Try to press back up through kneeling plank. Bring the knees back under the hips. Fingertips, fists for wrists if needed, and start with some very tiny little baby cat-cows. Don't go to your fullest stretch yet. We just did some back bending, so we'll want to give those muscles a little counter stretch. The exhale is going to stretch them out a little bit more as we round the back in cat pose. And then we'll come back to neutral. Walk those hands one hand's distance forward again, fingers are wide. Tuck the toes under, draw low belly in. Let's float the hips up, back, and down. And even bigger stretch in our first downward facing dog. Adjust your stance, parallel those feet. Bend the knees deeply to take tension out of the low back, or if the heels don't easily touch. Let's walk our dog. So on our next inhale, we'll float both heels up as high as we can. Look at the crease of your toes. Try to make it as symmetrical as possible. Exhale, drop the right heel to the floor, left knee bends. Inhale as high up as we can. We're stretching out the soles of the feet, the fascia of the feet. Sink the left heel down, bend the right knee. Inhale, both heels up. Exhale, sink the heels towards the ground, pause for a moment. Internal rotation in those hands, rooting into the mount of the index finger and thumbs. External rotation, those upper arm bones. Belly draws in, belly to thighs, pressing the thighs back. Next inhale, we'll look forward, step, walk, forward fold. If we're not forward folding in our practice, feel free to come up and practice your mountain pose and improve your posture there. If we're done being upside down, we want to modify, bend knees, placing hands or elbows on the thighs. Those of us in Uttanasana, strong legs and feet, lower bandhas engaged, Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha to support the back. Taking a hold of elbows if you want a little bit more. Do try to release the arms and the head regardless if they touch the ground or not. And then today, let's roll the body up like a wave. So we'll micro bend the knees, place the hands on the thighs, fingers are turned in. Now tuck the chin, and on the inhale, make sure you're breathing in. We're gonna round it up, stacking the vertebra one at a time. Inhale, inhale, inhale. The head should be the very last thing that comes up. Roll those shoulders up, and then bring them back and down, reaching the arms slightly away from the body, standing tall in Tadasana. Lightheaded, dizzy, sit right back down on the ground. And let's pause here for a moment, but for today in mountain pose, let's turn our palms to face forward, really spread the fingers nice and wide, continuing with this opening across the chest and the heart. Try to pick up those toes, feet parallel, root, mound a big toe inner heel, mound a pinky toe outer heel, four corners of both feet equally weighted and rooted into the earth. Unlock those knees, strong thighs, pelvic floor tightening, squeezing and lifting, lower abdominals pulling in, lower buttock lengthening down, hearts open, and the head is relaxed. Next, inhale, reach those arms as wide as possible and all the way overhead. Bring the palms to touch. Exhale, the hands to heart. Palm tree pose, getting into a little bit of our balance. Your toes are still up, good job. You can float the toes back down. Inhale, big circle. This time the heels come up, reach. Exhale. Try to slowly lower down. That gravity takes over again sometimes. Two more. Inhale, big stretch. Exhale. One more time with the breath. Next exhale, when we come down, let's pause here for a moment. We're gonna practice our Tarasana or star pose. I haven't done this one in a while. Open the feet just a little wider. So we just have a little wider of a base. This is a really great pose to help improve and practice our balance. We'll lean to our right side and press the right foot through the floor so it gets nice and strong. Our left side's gonna get a little lighter, and we're gonna lift and lower that left foot a little bit here. Try to find our hover. And then we'll relax our arms up. This is where we're gonna start the floating. Now that standing leg, if it's okay in your knees, I know some of you take care of your knees, but if your knee feels okay, you can do a little strengthening here by trying to bend into it. I'm still floating my left leg and straightening. So it's just a little lower and a lift. That's challenging. And then the fuller version of this pose is to spread the fingers and toes, use your left side body to lift the leg, and the arms reach up. The head should be relaxed. And if any of you want to practice your blind balancing, just make sure you're in a safe space. If you have somebody next to you, try not to knock them over, but you can blink the eyes. Eventually try closing the eyes. When I do my blind balancing, I always take chin mudra in the hand, index finger to thumb. It helps me concentrate. We'll all try to take one more big breath in. Now on this exhale, we'll land as softly as possible and land in stillness. Pause. Keep that focus and concentration. The eyes should not be moving around. We keep that drishti. Inhale, reach those arms back overhead. Palms touch. Exhale, hands to heart. Lean to the left. Now push that foot through the floor. When you push down through that left leg, this side should automatically get a lot lighter. And then lift and lower those toes. And then we'll try our hover. Soften the arms, so a little bit more lightness and looseness here. And we might be weeble wobbly. That's fine. We come out of the pose, we just come back to it. If it's okay on our knee, you may try some low single leg squats here, trying to stay hovering, a little bend and straightening. And then the fuller version, star pose, just like a big shining star in the sky. We use the muscles on the right side to lift the legs, spread the fingers and toes. We try to open the body nice and wide here. Notice the breath. Maybe blinking the eyes, maybe experimenting with our blind balancing. We'll all try to take one more breath in. And on the exhale, let it go. Again, soft landing into stillness. Pause, keep your focus and your gaze. Good. Inhale, reach those arms up. Palms touch. Exhale, hands to heart. Okay, so from this point, we're gonna work down, and we did this pose a few classes ago, Malasana or garland pose or a wide knee squat. So those of us with low backs, knees especially, we will probably want to take the supported version of this pose. And there is a way to lower down into it through a squat or a forward fold, and I'll show that in a second. But I want you to show you where we're going first. So if you have one or two blocks and you know you don't want to do the lower down or the hover, you can simply set yourself up and come down, as easy it is for you to get there. So the feet are wide, they're out at an angle, and the elbows will be to the inside and palms touch. Now, if you want to try to do the lower down and come into a hover or lower down onto your prop, feet are open wide, knees are lined up with the toes, so the toes are slightly turned out, the knees are slightly turned out. Some people like to hinge forward and use their fingertips to the ground to come down. That's a little bit much for my back. So I bring my hands to my heart, draw that low belly in. Knees must track to those toes. I'm trying to carefully slide all the way down. This is a big, powerful pose, okay? So don't force it. And then when we get into our squat, the elbows will encourage the knees open, but press the knees back into the elbows. So really squeeze those knees in. If you need to adjust the feet, the ankles, do so. Now we will try to hold this pose for several breaths, and we're gonna add a mudra this morning. This mudra is called Yoni Mudra, or the mudra or seal of the womb, and it signifies birth and creation. So we take the backs of the hands together as kind of like the church and the people in the steeple that we used to do as kids. And then you bring the index fingers and the thumbs out. So the fingers are on the inside, and then the index finger and thumb turns out, and it makes that almond shape. Now we either direct that energy through that mudra forward or turn it towards the heart. And we continue to let those hips get a nice big stretch. We're sinking the lower half of the body towards the ground. So this pose not only opens the hips, but this pose is really beneficial for our urinary system and reproductive system. So it helps tone and strengthen through the pelvic floor and that whole region around the pelvis. Now we can try to move on to one more version of Yoni Mudra. This is again mudra of creation, birth, and intention. So we keep that shape in the index finger and thumb, but you flare the fingers out at this point. So it looks like this. And then you try to lift the arms up slightly above the head, and our drishti moves through that space. Good. Powerful for the legs, I know. Let's try to take one more breath in. On the exhale, now those of us that are close to the ground, we might be able to bring our hands behind us and sit right down to the ground. If you're elevated up on a prop, you will scoot yourself off your props, and we are all going to come back into bound ankle pose or your easy cross pose. Now, compared to where I was at the beginning of class, I am now sitting flat to the floor, and I am currently able to sit up tall. I would not have been able to do that at the start of class. Now I could probably still use a little bit of a lift, so I'm gonna grab my meditation cushion and open it up and just give myself a little bit of a wedge to sit up on. Hands move back to ankles and feet. So you might also notice a little bit of difference in this pose from when we first took it to now. We'll take a couple breaths here. So again, if you feel like you have some space to hinge forward, you've gotten those hips to open a little bit more. And then on the inhale, let's float up through the crown of the head. Float those knees up, step it nice and wide. Hands behind us, give the knees a little rock. And then we'll slide the feet out to Upavishta Konasana, seated angle pose. It's not necessary to do the splits here. If you are more elevated, you may need to take some rolled towels behind the knees. We don't just want the knees collapsing, or just energize more through the front of the quads. Flex those feet, toes to shin bones. Hands can be behind the hips, helping the body sit up tall, staying right here today. Or again, we might try to find a little bit of mobility around those hips, bringing the body more forward. If you have the space, use your props to help support the body. Don't strain that low back. Even just sitting up perfectly tall, you'll still get a nice benefit here of toning the front of the hips and thighs and stretching out the inner thighs. One more breath. And then we'll inhale, float up through the crown of the head. Take a hold of those knees, slide them up, and give ourselves a little rock side to side. So let's do one more strengthening pose here. Then we'll move on to our back, and we'll use our strap to do Supta Padangusthasana today to get into our twist and outer hip stretch. So for this, we'll come off our support if it's there. This is that reverse plank pose that we've kind of been playing around with a little bit in classes these days as well. So reverse tabletop or Purvottanasana reverse plank. We'll start with tabletop. This pose does put a lot of pressure on the wrists, so be mindful of that. Feet will step in towards the body, hips width apart. The heels of the hands with the fingers pointing backwards line up with the outside of the hips. Glue the middle fingers to the ground, pick up the palms, spin them around. So now the fingers are pointing forward, they're wider than the hips, and my elbows bend backwards like the legs of a bird. I'm gonna step my feet in a little bit closer. I'm gonna start squeezing my backside and pressing those hips up. And drishti goes right up to the ceiling so the head stays in line with the spine. Now the knee should be pointing forward towards those toes. Strong upper back and arm work here. Give your glutes a little squeeze. Try to fire up the hamstring muscles. Breathe it in. Exhale, bring it down. We'll give our wrists a quick break. You can flip over to the backs of the hands. Gently drag the knuckles across the floor. Pinch the forefingers to the thumb and together. And then pull it up into praying mantis. So you're bending at the elbows and trying to round out the wrist. Again, slide the backs of the hands back, drag the knuckles forward, inhale, pinch, pull, 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 and shake it out. So we'll repeat reverse tabletop, or we'll try reverse plank. In reverse plank, you extend both legs and the legs are together. Same position with the hands. Start with the heels of the hands to the outside of the hips. Glue the top of the middle finger, lift the palms, spin around on that middle finger, drop the palms back down. Fingers face forward, elbows bending straight back. Full reverse plank, you point the toes, squeeze that backside, unlock those knees, so your knees will have a tiny micro bend in them, and you press it up, and you try to get your toes to touch. This is pretty powerful for the low back, so we would not do it. And if your feet cramp, that's quite normal as well. Gaze is straight up to the ceiling. Wherever we are, one more big breath in. And then exhale. Good job. Bring it all the way down. Bend the knees up if you need to. Flip the knuckles over, drag them forward. Pinch the fingers to the thumb and pull it up. and then shake it out. All right, time to come onto our back so we can get in our full Supta Padangusthasana. So have your straps or your props that you're gonna use handy. Either turn to one side and use your hands to walk down. A little bit more strengthening, we'll move forward. Plant the soles of the feet to the ground, knees are open wide. Reach the fingertips forward, contract the abdominals, rounding through the back. So we articulate down through the spine, sacrum, low back, mid back, shoulders, back of the head. When the head touches down, arms reach overhead, straighten the legs down the middle of the mat, long body stretch. Take a moment here, let the whole body lengthen. And then exhale, float those arms down, shoulders draw down, walk the feet in. Draw the knees to the chest for a moment to stretch out the low back. So we'll just do a more simple version of our Supta Padangusthasana. Hamstring stretching, inner thigh growing stretching, outer hip stretching, and then into our twist. We'll start with our right side. So take a hold of your prop, bend the right knee in, and take that strap to that lower arch near the heel. And then we're straightening that leg straight up towards the ceiling. And from here, hold the strap in both hands. We still want that heart opening. We don't want to close up that heart. Let it be open. Wrapping the strap around the hands can feel nice. We're pressing that heel up and we're lengthening from the inner groin all the way down through that inner heel and contracting from the outer heel all the way to that outer hip. And then we'll slide that left heel forward, intensify the stretch. The left foot is just as active, toes pulling into shin bones. Our low back should be flat to the floor. Relax the throat. We're focusing on the back of the right leg. Those of us that are able to try to draw that right leg closer towards the body, feel free to do so. Keep the left side anchored. And then take a hold of the strap in the right hand. Left hand grounds the left hip. Left side must stay connected to the floor, so use your left abdominals. Keep that low back flat. Try to get that right thigh bone closer to the torso, so that might mean bending the knee first. Bend the right elbow. Drop it out to the side of the body to use as a kickstand. Keep tension on the belt. From there, we can try to re-extend the right leg. Keep both feet actively flexing. Excuse me. Shoulders should be grounded. The right hand's doing the work. Left arm reaches up from the shoulder. Head turns to the left to counter twist the neck. Take a couple nice, really deep breaths in this pose. And then inhale, bring the head and the leg back up. We'll go for our IT, outer thigh stretch. So the left hand holds on, keep the right hip grounded. Try to keep that right leg as straight as possible. And then we just angle that right leg over at a diagonal, getting this nice big stretch here in this outer hip. And you can move that foot around in space a little bit till you target some of these muscles, massage them, take a fist, gently punch into them, help them release here. And then moving into the twist, we'll drop the left elbow out to the ground, keep tension on the strap. The leg won't necessarily touch the ground, but we will let the right hip come up. Keep the right shoulder down. Right arm extends from the shoulder, head turns to the right to counter twist. Take a couple deep breaths here. Even closing the eyes and slowing that breath down as we come to the end of our practice. Really try to exhale and let go. Our next inhalation will bring us back up. The head and the leg will come up. Open that strap up. Slide the left foot in and up. We'll pause and realign and waterfall pose. Both legs up towards the ceiling, shoulders drop down, throat is relaxed. So other side, bring the left foot to the floor. Try to place that strap closer to the lower arch near the heel. Again, we're lengthening from the inner groin to the inner heel, create space from the inside of the leg, and contract from the outer heel to the outer hip. Hands are open, heart is open. Once that leg is straight, we might be able to pull it in a little bit closer, and we'll slide our right heel straight forward, right foot just as active, toes to shins, anchoring into the ground so that we can concentrate on stretching out the back of the left leg. And then we'll hold on with the left hand. Right hand anchors the right hip to the ground. Use the strength of your right side to keep it to the ground. Draw that left thigh bone closer to the torso, even if that means bending the left knee. Bend at the left elbow, dropping the left elbow up from the shoulder. Keep tension on the strap. Open the left leg to the left. From there, try to re-extend the leg, flexing both feet, opening up the groin across the front of the pelvis. Low back stays flat, right arm may reach out, head turns to the right to counter twists. Deep breaths. Our next inhale will guide us out. The head and the leg come up. Right hand holds on. First, we're just trying to target this outer hip. So try to keep that leg straight. You're going to start to angle it across the midline, but pull the left side back down. So the low back remains flat here. Move around a little bit until you start to feel that nice stretch in the outer hip. Massage your punch into it. And taking this into our twist, bend at the right elbow. We'll allow the left hip to come up so the hips are stacked. Keep tension on the belt. Left arm reaches out, sink the left shoulder down, turn the head to the left. Close the eyes and just wring everything out. Exhale away any tension and tightness in the body, around the face, the throat, the shoulders, the back. Our next inhale will bring us out. Head and leg come up. Open the strap, slide the right foot in and up, pausing and waterfall pose. And then we'll bend those knees, release the strap off to the side. Cross one ankle over the other, just allow the weight of the knees to fall towards the body. Extend both arms straight up to the ceiling, but flop the hands and the fingertips forward. Give them a quick little wiggle if needed to release from holding and doing the work. Dead bug pose, pause, just drape the fingertips and take a breath. Switch the cross of the ankles. Take a couple more breaths. Dead bug pose. Uncross at the ankles, open the knees wide, let the hands fall to the inside. One more time, revisiting our bound angle pose here. Drawing the insides or soles of the feet to touch, heels to the pubic bone. The elbows might gently encourage the thigh bones out. One more time, visiting happy baby pose. Soles of the feet move up to the ceiling. Drop the thigh bones nice and wide. Let the back sink into the ground. Stretch one leg out at a time, 45 degrees. Add a little lean to that side as you like. You might need to move the hands around to get that stretch. And then opening both legs out, our wide angle stretch, Supta Konasana. Either move the hands to the outside of the thigh to support the weight of the legs. Continue to hold onto the toes if it's an option, or move the hands to the inside. Big breath in. Next exhale, release the feet, squeeze those legs back up, waterfall pose. Bend the knees, try to wrap those arms across those shin bones as much as possible. Float the head up, giving our body a great big loving hug and filling ourselves up with gratitude for waking up and choosing our yoga practice today. Big breath in. And on the exhale, we get to let it all go. Most important part of our practice where we absorb all the benefits of everything we just did. If you're comfortable where you are, connected to the ground here, we'll stay here. Rolling those arm bones out, palms up, fingertips curl up naturally. Rocking the head out to find the very back center of the skull. Poofing the cheeks with air, wiggling out the mouth, the tongue, and the jaw. Either keeping the knees bent and together with the feet planted to the floor, knees open, soles of the feet touching, or stretch those legs out, feet flopping open out into Shavasana. And of course, if you want to add your pillows, your blankets, your eye coverings, please do so. Take the time in the beginning of this pose, put some effort into it. Find symmetry in your body, left to right, front to back. Purposely place the body in such a way that it can completely relax. And we're actually going to do a practice of tension and release today in our final relaxation. So if you have your knees bent up or they're open in Baddha Konasana, might be a little bit different experience, but we can still get the same sensations from it. So we'll start with just the face. We'll squeeze all the muscles of the face and tighten it up and furrow the brow as tight as we can. Squeeze and tighten and breathe it in. And then exhale, let it relax. And now we'll just do the hands and the arms. I want you to curl the hands up into two tight fists. Try to float the arms maybe a half an inch from the floor. Squeeze the muscles around the shoulders and tighten all those muscles up as much as possible. Breathe it in. Exhale, let it drop. Now just the feet and the legs. So flex the feet if it's an option. Spread the toes. Fire up the quads. Try to lift the legs up. If you're in Shavasana, maybe just a half an inch from the floor. Squeeze and tighten. Inhale. Exhale, let it drop. Now we're going to do the whole body. So tighten, squeeze up the face, furrow the brow. Make two strong fists in the hands. Tighten up the arm muscles. Squeeze. Pull the abdomen in. Squeeze the buttocks. Tighten up the quads. Flex the feet. Spread the toes. Float the arms and legs an inch from the floor. Squeeze every muscle in the body as tight as possible. Inhale. And exhale. Let it drop. Let everything go. Zero resistance. Relax the whole right side of the body. Relax the whole left side of the body. Relax the front of the body. Relax the back of the body. Soften and relax the inside of the body. The breath becomes easy, calm, and quiet. If the mind wanders, gently bring it back to the peaceful breath, giving ourselves another moment to let go, to feel a sense of surrender, and to sink into Shavasana. So we'll slowly start to come back to the natural rhythm of our breath. And gently breathing life back into our body, waking up the toes, the fingertips, rocking the head side to side, rolling the ankles, the wrists. Our next inhale, float those knees back up, straighten the legs out if they're in bound angle. We'll re-extend the arms overhead and revisit our long body stretch one more time here to open the whole body up, side to side, front to back. Big breath in, spread fingers and toes. Exhale, float the arms back down, walk the feet in, and draw those knees in towards the body, giving our low back a little rock side to side here. Right arm falls beside the head, rolling all the way onto our right side, pausing and sleeping baby pose. Keeping those eyes soft or closed, press into the ground, bringing the body back up. Revisiting any comfortable seated posture on our mat, sitting up tall to the crown of the head on our sit bones. Minding our surroundings, we'll take just a couple more breaths together today. Floating those arms out beside the body, palms up. Big breath in to float those arms up and gathering up everything we need for the rest of our day. Turn the palms back out, even bigger breath out to float the arms all the way back to the ground and to let go of all that other junk we don't need today. And one more breath together. Inhale, arms up. Palms touch, exhale, hands to heart into Anjali Mudra. Humbly bow the head to the heart to honor and thank ourselves, our bodies, each other, and anyone else who made it possible for us to practice our yoga together today. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace.